Hi, my name is Viles Max, and this is Design Experience Assignment number 2. For this assignment, I was asked to make a video on a cause somewhere around the world that I feel passionate about. But unfortunately, I don't really know much about what's going on, so I needed to do some research. So I went to Google. Okay, well, I'll admit I didn't really find a cause, but I learned a few things. For example, Algeria. From the time Algeria was colonized by the French, right through the War of Algerian Independence in the 1950s, and until the 1990s, the nation had been divided by religious, cultural, and political tension. Due to an increased literacy rate, a population explosion, historically unfair voting rights for the Muslim population, and influences from Western nations, Algeria finally had its first multi-party election in 1991. However, when the Islamic Salvation Front, representing a considerable chunk of the population who had previously no vote, gained a lead in the advanced polls, the military declared a state of emergency and shut the election down. The result was a civil war that lasted a decade and caused the deaths of 160,000 people through numerous raids, such as the Reyes Massacre, which had a BBC-reported death toll of up to 800. Most famously was an incident regarding 7 Trappist monks operating in a monastery in Tiberine. These monks were living peacefully within a mixed religion community when in 1996 they were kidnapped and beheaded by Muslim extremists. This was later dramatized in a 2010 film, Of Gods and Men. From 2002 on, insurgents continued to wage minor guerrilla warfare until offered amnesty. In 2011, the 19-year state of emergency. The state of emergency first started in 1991 during the election, was finally lifted, much due to the rumors of revolution similar to that which had happened in Egypt. Even today, the strikes, protests, and raids are still going on. Okay, I might be oversimplifying this one just a little bit, but in truth, this revolution is just another step in an extremely long and complicated story. And I'll admit I'm having trouble relating to this one. Maybe I need a topic that's a little bit more recent. Alright, well, Haiti. At 4:53 in the evening on January 12, 2010, a magnitude 7 earthquake struck Haiti only 16 miles from the country's capital, Port-au-Prince. The initial estimates were very rough and guessed between 92 to 316,000 dead and over 1 million left homeless. Much of the infrastructure within Port-au-Prince itself was demolished, including most of the National Palace. In 1946, a much worse earthquake, a magnitude 8, had struck the Dominican Republic, resulting in the deaths of nearly 2,000 in Haiti, mostly due to a tsunami. This, because it took place right in Haiti, was much worse, causing devastation that will take the country decades to recover from. Of course, almost immediately, foreign aid and fundraising campaigns launched to aid the failing nation. Montreal, with a considerable Haitian population, made a relief effort of $3 million, while long-term plans were made to contribute $770 million to be distributed over the entire 2010 to 2012 run. Joining the fundraising effort would come a number of celebrities using their stardom to help raise money. Among the celebrities was Haitian-born Governor-General Michel Jean, who had been a major critic of Prime Minister Harper's slow pace in providing aid, and musician and record producer Wyclef Jean, who attempted to run for office in Haiti as president, but was turned down by the Electoral Committee and was subsequently shot in the hand by an unknown assailant shortly before the elections. To this day, hundreds and thousands are still without homes, living in shelters with poor conditions, waiting for relief. Children remain out of the education system, which quite literally crumbled beneath their feet. Sanitary and health conditions are so poor that, by the end of 2010, people were dying at a rate of 50 per day. Though many toil to better the Haitian standard of life, very little seems to have been accomplished. Okay, well, how do I help? It's not like I can donate a lot of money, I don't make much, and I have bills in school. And, let's face it, it's not the shortage of money that's a problem, it's the actual labor that's needed. But it's not like I can exactly take off either, I have obligations and a job and school. And I'm basically trapped into it for the next 4 years. I could create awareness, but it seems that Haiti's already a term on everyone's lips, and it's not exactly hard to find a fund that's donating to that cause. The bigger problem is, well, Okay, I'm making excuses. Now, I don't mean to sound callous. I am sympathetic and would like the world to be a better place, but like many fellow North Americans, I have trouble associating with things that don't happen in my own backyard. And here's the thing, it's not that I don't care, it's just that it goes against my rules of being an activist. Rules, it sounds like I just made that up, but I do have a few, and the first is knowledge is power, but ignorance is even more dangerous. And let's face it, what do I really know about either of these incidences other than what I've read online or seen on TV? Can I really act with only 2 weeks of research? Do I have the right to inform others when I basically know nothing and have experienced nothing? Acting in ignorance can be just as damaging as not acting at all. For instance, take actor George Clooney, now the proud owner of a publicly accessible satellite that watches, records, and broadcasts any genocidal activity in an attempt to create awareness. He tried to donate a handful of commodities to a village in the Sudan. He sponsored a community center, a well, and several huts. A year later, the neighboring village raided and killed many of them in an attempt to access the things he donated. Mr. Clooney quickly realized how a kind act can turn sour without cultural understanding. Okay, second law, thermodynamics. The law of thermodynamics dictates that energy is never created or destroyed. And this law applies to activism. You cannot change anything unless you're willing to lose something. As far as petitions and online surveys or slacktivism goes, it's simply not powerful enough. It does have a place in influencing social media and local law, such as stopping Fox News Canada from taking root. However, the recent swell of Twitter support to override the recent CCRT bandwidth cap, although garnered hundreds of thousands of names on a website, did little more than prompt a 140-character empty promise from an MP to not let it happen. But there has been no action since on his part to make the change. The spirit of activism, though it is a motivating factor to sign a petition, takes more than that to properly function, and on a global level is mostly useless. 1 million signatures from Canada to stop the tuna fishing in Japan falls on deaf ears. Those million names, in digital form, do not translate into anything but an opinion. Action, like the complete boycott of tuna in supermarkets, writing in physically to local MPs and federal government to ban the import of tuna into Canada, would be real activism. But that kind of action requires personal sacrifice and concrete lifestyle change, things that most individuals are reluctant to give up and do not do in their own lives. In the summer of 1990, activists attempted to save the redwood forests by protesting logging. They chained themselves to trees and literally slept in the canopies. In Oakland, California, some fought protesters so adamantly that their car was actually bombed by unknown assailants. After years of arrests, being evicted by loggers from high up in the canopies, and in 1997 having pepper spray applied directly into their eyes by police, the protesters were finally able to force a change. In 1999, Headwaters Grove was turned into a preserve for redwood trees. It took nearly 2 decades of sacrifice, but the handful of individuals were able to achieve something monumental. They did this by showing they were willing to give up their secure lives in order to fight for something they believed in, and subsequently assured the survival of an entire species of trees. Well, those are the rules, and they might seem trivial, but they are important to me. So, with all that, is there something that I'd be willing to fight for? Okay, yes. This is my mom. And this is my cousin. Both of them, when they were quite young, were paralyzed from the waist down and now are in wheelchairs. Every day they face roadblocks that challenge what it is to be a human being. Okay, Toronto's not so bad for getting around with as far as being in a wheelchair goes. However, there's a lot of things that we, as a society, take for granted in respects to accessibility that we may not realize. One example of something we take for granted as a society would be the Xbox Kinect. Now, this might seem as an amazing tool for us, as gamers, but for somebody in a wheelchair who doesn't have the use of their legs, it's almost completely useless. And the more annoying point is that it's not in Microsoft's best interest to sell a product that caters to somebody in a wheelchair. There's simply not the market for it. On a larger scale and on a much more public view is the accessibility of retail stores. Unfortunately, the laws dictating accessibility in stores are so lax that we may never actually see the day when all stores are accessible to people with disabilities. And this is just reflective of the fact that the system governing the finances in Canada regarding disability are just inadequate. For example, in 2005, 4,400 disability stickers were given to people over 100 years of age for parking. Yet, Statistics Canada says there's only 1,700 people over the age of 100 actually living in Ontario. Where's the discrepancy? What's even more bizarre is only 30 of those people were actually licensed to drive. Further, there were also 198 licenses registered to people under the age of 16 who, according to their disability license, were registered to drive. There isn't a lot of support in Disability Canada, and it's through things like this that just cause it to further hemorrhage money. So, I guess if I was to take up a cause, that could be it. Disability is important, it hits home, and it's something that affects Canadians. What do you think?